What's up? Akihimself presents two creepy, allegedly true hide and seek horror stories by Mr. Nightmare. It's not Halloween, but it is dark outside. It's 8:24 here, and what better way than to end it off with some scary stuff. Let's do it. By the way, I love this guy. He's like...
When I was a kid, my
spooky
parents would
stories are
sometimes
really
bring me
good.
down to my aunt and uncle's place to stay for the weekend. Mainly, I'd spend time playing with my two cousins who were around the same age as me. They lived on a small farm with plenty of open space, and we could run around doing pretty much whatever we wanted. If we thought we could get away with it, the three of us would sometimes cross over to the neighboring farm about half a mile away.
I can't even
It had been
imagine what it would be
abandoned
like
for
to live on a
decades, with a
farm.
scattering of derelict buildings and other structures still standing on the property, just begging to be explored. This was, of
Dude, that
course, a
would be
gold
nice.
mine for three adventurous young boys such as ourselves, especially after my cousins told me stories.
Not gonna lie, that right there is a child. This whole thing is like a childhood dream. Being able to just explore as a young kid with your buddies in a huge property.
About the deaths that took place in the house. It was pretty classic fare. Man goes crazy, axe murders his entire family, hangs himself,
Yeah.
returns every night as an angry spirit looking for new victims. Good, grisly stuff. Even at that age, I knew they were probably making it up, or at least embellishing old rumors. But seeing as how the setting lent itself...
The footage itself, I'm not sure if this footage correlates to the story, but I'm liking the footage. I mean, this is like some spooky stuff.
So well to such tales, I allowed myself to buy into it. One afternoon, we decided to play hide and seek. When it was my turn to hide, I ran off for a flimsy brown barn that had living quarters on top and climbed the stairs looking for a good spot. There was
That's me. That's me when I'm a kid. I get the best hiding spot
across the floor. I maneuvered over broken dishes, tattered clothes, and crumbling books, eventually coming to a small room with a closet. Jackpot. There were even long black dresses still hanging on the rod that I could hide behind. I stepped inside and managed to force shut the folding door.
Property?
My only illumination was a slit of sunlight that shone through the crack in the door from a nearby window. I crouched down with knees tucked into chest and waited. Some time passed and there was still no sign of my seekers. I waited some more, debating if and when I should give myself up. After nearly an hour, this was starting to get boring. My head drooped. I woke with a jerk. It was pitch black.
Oh, it's the attic! I just
Drowsy and
realized.
Confused.
Or it's the closet he's
where I
in.
was or what I had been doing. As it came back to me, the realization that it was now nighttime and that I had been abandoned here filled me with sinking dread in the pit of my stomach.
Alright. How are you in that position for that long? I mean, like 20, 15 minutes, 20, 30 minutes. Like, your buddies should be, like, near you within that time. There's no way you're there when the sun sets and it's dark outside.
I tried to get up, but a sudden cramp in my calf kept me grounded. I squirmed about, waiting for it to pass, when I heard a door slamming shut downstairs, and instantly froze.
So they just hid in like some other person's house?
There was a brief period of silence.
Their neighborhood's house or neighbor's house?
At the bottom of the stairs. But not just footsteps, a thud too. After every other step. These weren't the footfalls of a child.
I love
this. They were slow, heavy, deliberate. I held my breath, praying they would go away. They did not. The noises continued to ascend.
So I'm guessing he entered the wrong house. Or they hid in their neighbor's house.
After another moment of silence, the walking resumed. This time along with a steady scraping sound, like something heavy being dragged across the floorboards.
That's the axe, man.
The footsteps made their way through the debris and wandered aimlessly through the various rooms. I thought I could smell something faintly putrid. The constant scrapes sent cold shivers coursing down my arms and back. My worst fears were realized when the steps reached the bedroom doorway. They got closer and closer and finally stopped directly in front of the closet door.
Sounds like it's like a Conjuring. It's like a Nun. The Nun soundtrack.
After an agonizing pause, they continued on over to the other side of the room and out the doorway again. They faded away down the hallway. I waited for what seemed like an eternity. There were no more sounds now, and I was trying to build up enough courage to open the door and flee.
I know the smell got stronger.
Simultaneously just then. I was bombarded with a smell I can only describe as fresh roadkill.
Point proven.
I heard raspy breathing behind me in the dark closet, and
That's
I
that
felt
Marlboro
hot breath against the nape of
raspy.
my neck. That was enough for me to hurtle myself out from the confines of that nightmare space, relying on memory and scant moonlight to navigate through the darkened house. All the while, I heard footsteps chasing behind me, closing in with terrifying speed.
Wait, so some dude lived in like
escape full of
this
trips and bumps and blind
place.
stumbling. I never looked back, at least not until I had burst out the front door and into the country night. And when I did turn around, I saw absolutely nothing. There were no more footsteps, and
I was expecting to see some huge ass dude.
That didn't stop me from running, though, all
not.
the way back to my aunt and uncle's house. There was a police car in the driveway when I got back. My parents were there too, worried sick. Everybody demanded to know where.
Alright. Okay. Something's up here. So 3 people, including him that was hiding, they decided to go hide in a massive property. Just 3 people. I was like, okay, you need at least like 20 to 15 people for this. And they said 3. Said 3, yeah. Best you can do is 3 with this massive property and go hide. Like, I'm not going to find you. There's no way. Like, what is this?
I had been. Apparently, when my cousins still hadn't found me by evening, they'd returned home to tell their parents.
They dipped.
Eventually, the police were called in and informed me that they had already scoured every building on the farm. The insinuation that I was lying about my whereabouts didn't go unnoticed. None of it made any sense. It wasn't until years later that one of my cousins filled in a final piece of the story. He and his brothers had spent hours searching for me like they said, but the part they didn't tell anyone was that they thought they spotted me in the window of the bedroom I was hiding in. When they got closer, they saw that it wasn't me.
That's Edgar.
The young boy neither of them recognized was smiling and waving down at them and gesturing for them to come upstairs. That's when they ran back home. All of this while I slept in the closet.
Bro, alright, that's crazy. The first story was good. I mean,
a few months
crazy
ago,
how
I
big
was
that
over at my
property
friend's
was.
house down the block. In fact, that's where most of my friends on the block actually are. I'm 16 years old right now, the second oldest out of the group of kids down the block.
Is it just me? But something about this suburb, I love it. Is it like a countryside or suburb? I mean, it's like like a little bit between both because there's a lot of houses around each other. It looks like this looks nice. I like my neighbors here. If I lived here,
block. There's Alan,
I'm not
who's
sure.
17.
This is a
Dan,
horror
who's
thing,
in the
so
same
I'm not
grade
sure.
as me, but a little younger. Johnny, who's 14. Daniela, who's also 14. Nick, who's 13.
Look at the
and
land.
Tom, who's only 12 years old. There's a big age gap between some of us, but we're really the only kids on the entire block. Me and Dan were the closest friends, and we kind of just met all the other kids who lived around the area while we hung out originally. It started to become our Friday night tradition to play a big game of Manhunt by Daniela and Nick's house. We don't live in a typical suburban neighborhood. Our area is a lot more spacious and overall has a lot less people and houses. And for that reason, there wasn't a lot going on in our area, but it also made the game that much more fun. It was our turn to hide first.
Again,
I had 3 other kids on my
second
team,
story with
but more
all
notably,
this
I
land.
had Dan on my team.
I like it.
Me and Dan both went next door to Mr. Nelson's old house. He was an old man who passed away a few years ago.
Mr. Nelson.
And since then, no one has bought the house, leaving it vacant and a perfect property to add space for our game. Me and Dan went to the back section of the property by the lake, where we found a perfect hiding spot in some of his bushes.
Dude, that looks so nice.
Dan, however, wanted to try something crazy and entered the vacant house through a sliding window. So I waited alone in the bushes.
It's so nice to go fishing
The goal
out
of the
here.
game was to get back to Nick's house, which was always considered home base. A big part of the game is waiting. I was in those bushes for like 5 minutes until I finally saw 2 kids from the other team entering the backyard looking for us. They were making a lot of noise.
Yo, this one they got teams now. There's like 3-4 people for the other one.
Continued even further down the block, giving us the perfect chance to run. I looked around at all the windows of the house, hoping Dan would be standing near one of them for me to wave him on. And when I looked up to one of the upstairs windows, I was relieved to see his head looking down
to me.
Another
dude. That's Edgar too.
I waved him on, letting him know it's time to go.
That's Cletus, not Edgar. That's Cletus.
Now I wasn't sure if he could see me. I went over to the window that he entered through, opened it, entered the house, and yelled up into the house calling Dan's name. I'm not even exaggerating when I say I felt like my heart stopped when I heard Dan's voice only a few feet away from me saying, "Dude, shh." I asked him how he got downstairs so quickly, and he just looked confused. He then told me he was sitting down here this whole time. At that same moment, we both looked up to the ceiling as there was a creaking sound coming from upstairs. We both hopped back out the window and ran back to Nick's house, where we called the game off. We went to ask Dan's dad if somebody had moved into the home, but he was positive that nobody had lived there for 3 years. Me, Alan, Dan, and Dan's dad all went over to the house, where we entered the same way we had earlier. Dan's dad was familiar with the house, as he used to be good friends with Mr. Nelson. He led the way upstairs into the bathroom with a window I had seen someone standing at. He flicked on the lights,
but no one
and
was
besides
there.
A crumpled up reddish-brown blanket on the floor, the room was empty. We went through the entire house and found nothing. Dan's dad really didn't know what to do from there, so he just said if any of us, including him, ever see anything or anyone in that house, we would report it to the police immediately. It's been a few months already, and we haven't seen anything
Hidden
since.
story of Cletus.
But I know that somebody, besides Dan, was in that house that night.
Yo, that was good.